Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this special stream event featuring Laura Martinez, the brilliant writer behind our monthly humor column, Hisplaining, a not-so-serious guide to Hispanic jargon. Laura is a bilingual journalist with over 25 years of experience writing about business, media, technology, and pop culture within the Latin America industry, as well as the US. She's an honors graduate of Mexico's most prestigious journalism school and has worked on some of the biggest media outlets like CBS, Wall Street Journal, Univision, and she even grilled Don Francisco at New York City in 2012. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. How was your weekend? How are you doing?
It was great. I actually went to climb a mountain. We got a lot of snow up here.
Oh, nice,
in upstate
nice.
New York, so it was fun. And
thank
you for reminding me about Don Francisco. That was one of the highlights of my career.
I can't wait to look it up. I really want to see that. So let's get a little bit into Hisplaining and your background and what you write about. So you have a diverse background and wealth and experience that has influenced the topic that you write about. Can you tell us a bit about how your background and your experience has shaped the topics that you continue to write about?
It's interesting because, I'm born and raised in Mexico, but I started traveling at a very young age. I actually went to high school in Singapore when I was very, very young. I was very young. I never left Mexico. And then when I left, I went to Singapore. And then I got to travel a lot for work. I lived in South America. I did a lot of articles in Central America. So it was always from a very young age, starting with the Singapore experience when I was hanging out with people from all over the world. Like my roommates were from India, from Thailand, from Holland. And I've always been exposed to these kind of different cultures and different cultures. So one of the I would say like the first time that something remotely similar happened to me to this, you don't look Mexican, that happens very, 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 very often to me in the US, was I got in a taxi in Buenos Aires. And, Buenos Aires, capital of Argentina, it's like they like to call their city like Paris in the 1920s. It's a very white, very beautiful colonial city. So anyway, so I jumped in a cab and it was my accent. This time was not so much my looks. So it was my accent and the Argentine driver, he was looking at me and he was listening to my accent. He's like, "Oh, what a cute accent you have. Are you Latin American?" And I'm like, "What?" So then I kind of learned at that moment that for Argentines, someone who was outside from Argentina was actually a Latin American. They didn't see themselves as Latin Americans for some very clear reason. So I started to pick on these little clues, and it never bothered me. More than anything, it just intrigued me, right? And the first time that happened to me here in the US, and this is how the whole column started. This last column. I hopped on a taxi and I was with my friend Mercedes, who's also from Mexico. And the taxi looked at us and like, "Oh, you're speaking a funny language. Where are you from?" And then we're like, "We're from Mexico." And the guy looks at us like, "No, you don't look Mexican. Mexicans look like Chinese." And then we were like, "What?" It was just very strange. So it was at the very beginning of my stay here in the US, and then I realized it happened more often than I thought. So I started asking other people, and it turns out that when I tweeted that, I actually have the tweet here in front of me. This tweet kind of exploded. I got 1,361 retweets, thousands of comments, and 300 quote tweets. And then I realized that I was not alone in this journey of not looking Mexican. So that's a long answer to your question.
So going back to the taxi, is that how you get your ideas, or what's your process like?
In this particular case was that tweet. I just kind of tweeted this crazy thing like, "You don't look Mexican." And then I was like, "Why am I supposed to look like a taco?" Actually, let me ask you a question, Sue. You do not look Cuban.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I get that a lot too.
So I think what happens is like, and it was very funny because at the very beginning, the comments like started pouring in, and there was a lot of people like saying, "Oh yeah, I don't look Dominican. What am I supposed to look like? A plátano." And then the same people like, "You don't look Argentine. What am I supposed to do? Look like an empanada?" So anyway, it just became like a almost like like a community that formed through that very small innocent tweet. And that's when I realized that this might be a column because I every time I write, whether it's for Hispanic Executive or for my blog or for other publications, I really, really always want to think or want to believe that I am not the only one experiencing certain thing. And my experience as a Mexican, or more broadly as a Latin American in the US, has been super interesting, and it has given me so many ideas that I still have tons of stuff to share with you guys. So yeah.
That's awesome. So Hisplaining, the name of it, how?
You know what? I really don't even remember how it came about. I think we were just toying around with the idea of trying to write a column like to explain certain concepts or certain cultural clues to Americans or to Anglos, right? Or to people who don't really understand the Latin American culture. So, it just kind of came off like it was the typical mansplaining, when
I
a
see.
man tries to explain you, and then at some point, some like friends of mine would use like mexplaining. Someone was telling me the other day something about, oh, you don't understand Mexico. And I was like, please don't mexplain, Mexico to me because I'm fine. So I think, it was kind of there because it was like Hispanic culture, Hispanic magazine, and kind of Hisplaining just kind of felt natural.
I love it. I think it's so clever. It lends itself for a lot. The same as I don't look Mexican. What am I supposed to look like? A taco? Immediately I was like, I don't look Cuban. What am I supposed to look like? A tamale?
Tamal.
So,
It's
tamal.
tamal.
Right.
Tamal,
Sorry,
not
my
tamal.
bad.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
you write about these topics
Mm-hmm.
with humor, but there are also kind of difficult topics like race and colorism that can be really challenging to write about. Do you face any obstacles? How do you go about that?
That's a tough one. I wanted to write something about the term Latinx that, as you know, it just raises a lot of passions. That I actually said it's worse than your 9 p.m. telenovela. Because a lot of people like take it very seriously. Other people say like, no, this is a thing that the scholars should be discussing, or the politicians that are using it as a woke team versus the politicians who think that we shouldn't use it. So I always try to go about the controversy and try to find like not so much humor, but like my voice or my opinion. And it turns out that I'm just funny for the most
Yeah, you are.
so that's yeah. And the most recent one, I think it's out now, but I'm not entirely sure. I tried to explain colorism, and colorism is, I mean, as you know, it's I mean, people have written papers and doctoral thesis on that, and I just wanted to zero in on one particular word, which is güeros or güeras, no, not so much like what it means, which means a blonde person or a light-skinned person, but how that term, at least in Mexico, has been used to reflect like a very, very, very complex relationship to color and to racism and discrimination. So I tried not necessarily to be funny or light just for the sake of being light, but just, again, it's just always trying to find my voice. And the way I did this particular one, I remember going to Mexico with my boyfriend, who is French, but he's not at all blonde. And people in the markets keep calling him güerito, güerito, güerito. And he just turns to me like, why are they calling me blonde? I am not blonde. And then, that again gives you an idea.
Right.
Like, oh, I can write about this and I can explain why the hell was he being called blonde, So it just so happens that I tend to be like funny because that kind of been my brand in writing, not in my journalistic writing, but like in opinion pieces on my blog. So.
I love your opinion pieces. Speaking of this you don't look Mexican. It seems to have really resonated with a lot of people. Over 200,000 people read it. Over 1,000 people commented on it and have been sharing it since it got published. Why do you think it resonates so much with the Latino community to be told you don't look you're from where you're from? Why is that?
That is very interesting. I mean, because I think everybody has experienced a similar situation in one way or another. I mean, there was for example, there's one of the comments that I marked here. It's like it's saying something without saying it, because basically what they are saying when they tell us that is like, you don't look brown and indigenous.
Yeah.
Or a guy also commented, and I cannot find it here, but I have a lot of comments.
We'll share it.
He said something about you look like you're from the ruling class. And in fact, that could be true. You know, the guy was Peruvian, and they were like, oh, you don't look Peruvian, but maybe because you are from the ruling class of Peru. And it's just saying so much in that little phrase, you know, you don't look like such and such.
That's true. Yeah, I've gotten that one too many times. If I had $1, that would be
rich.
I would have at least $20. So what's the best feedback you've gotten from your Hisplaining column? Now you've been doing it for a few months now, and you must hear back from friends, family, colleagues. What's the best feedback you've received so far? Is there any controversial ones that you want to address?
No, actually, no. The feedback has been great, mostly because I try to stay like away from the controversy, and it kind of pleases a lot of people the way I approach the subject. But let me think. Maybe the Latinx one, yeah, I had some like pushback from people like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be explaining this or hisplaining. I love it that people use the word hisplaining now. I even use it as a verb now. It's like I write to Michelle or to you, and it's like, oh, there's something I would like to hisplain.
Let me hisplain real quick.
Let me hisplain the Reyes Magos, for example.
I love it. So we have some.
With a bit pushback, but other than that, it's usually people are nice to me.
Yeah, I've been loving them. So we have some comments that we want to share with you from when we posted it to see how you would react to some of them. Let me show them in the screen here. Richard Pierre, also known as Mike, said, "It goes both ways. Can't tell you how many times Latin people look at me and freak out when I start talking perfect Spanish." What do you think about that? The both ways situation. Has that happened to you?
Well, no, yes, you can tell I have a very heavy accent, but it's funny. Like I think my writing in English is pretty good, but then the accent is like what throws it away. Like, oh, you're definitely not for him. But he's right. Like, yeah. So he freaks out when he starts talking perfect Spanish. Yeah, it happens to people, not to me. I mean, I speak, but I have an accent. So I guess he means not having an accent.
Right.
I found another one that this woman, like, she says, not only I gotten this numerous times, like saying you don't look Honduran.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I also get, oh, no way. Okay, where is that? Where is Honduran?
Yeah, that happens too. So the next one is Laura Martinez. She said she picked up the phone at her office. The person asked to speak to Maria. She told that there were no one in the office named Maria. Then she explained that she talked to someone who was Mexican. She told her that there were I told her that there were 3 people in our department with Hispanic surnames, but none of them named Maria. I thought you were all named Maria, she replied.
Okay, great. That's a good one.
That's a good one. I can't say that that's happened to me, but that seems infuriating. Next one, Jackie Vargas says, "You're so articulate. So articulate for what? A Mexican American woman? A PSA, please don't say this to any person of color, it's just insulting and not a compliment at all.
That is true. That is true. It's like, oh, you're so articulate for being Mexican, or you're so articulate for being Cuban, or you're speaking as if, it was a handicap to be from somewhere else.
Yeah, that's happened to me. They're like, but you don't have an accent, or I can't place your accent. I'm like, yeah, been here for a while. Next one. Linda says, yes, someone I went out with said he wouldn't date me because I was not Latina enough. I constantly have to explain I'm not half, I'm 100% Mexican.
I don't know what being a Latina enough means.
Me either. Do I have to burst down in salsa dancing? Okay, so last one. After just telling a security guard about my Hispanic heritage, he responded, but you look like such a nice American girl.
Okay.
Man, some of these comments were pretty interesting, I gotta tell you.
I am so happy to learn it. It did so well. I mean, like, do you have a number? Like, I never really, like, the number of people, or I guess it was shared a lot too, right?
Yeah, so 200,000 people read the article, and over 1,000 people commented on it throughout all of our channels, which was really amazing to see how we can connect on that. And I just didn't know. I thought that was just an isolated incident on my end, but it seems like a lot of Hispanics have the same problem. So let's take a look here at some of the comments that we've been getting. This person, Olivia Smith, said she's gotten that one. And she's also said, at work they asked to translate to Spanish. I say you have to translate the culture, not just the language. That's also very true.
That's also very true.
Yeah, different countries have different cultures and different lingos also. So Ozzy said he very much appreciates the conversation, and he also has been having the "Are we Latino enough?" Because I've also had this, like, I've been out of Cuba, my origin country, for quite some time. I grew up here basically, and when I go to Cuba, I'm not Cuban enough because I either don't know how to dance, or I don't speak it perfectly, or I don't know the lingo. So that's happened often. I'm loving all these comments. Thank you so much for joining us today as we uncover this. A lot of people have been commenting that some of these comments are pretty horrible. Gabrielle here said, I respond to those comments by making the distinction between a race and an ethnicity. Being Hispanic Latino is an ethnicity, 100%. So before we wrap up, you mentioned you gave us a little bit about what your next article or column is about, the Güeros. Are there any other topics that you're thinking about for future columns? Like, give us a little bit.
I was actually going to take this opportunity to have our viewers and our followers to pitch in their own ideas, because I might not be seeing things that maybe a more recent immigrant here is seeing, because I've been here too long. So really, that would be super welcoming. But always anything that touches on culture. I mean, for example, I've been thinking of, like, now with the couple of bank collapses we had over the weekend, I was thinking, like, maybe trying to dig a little deeper into more like a businessy topic, like maybe the way we save, the way we deal with money, which would be more like on target to Hispanic Executive Magazine, but again, trying to find an amusing route, or at least a way in which I can explain how we deal with our finances, which I can assure you is super different for the most part as what I've seen in people here. So that's an idea that is floating. But if readers and followers everywhere can just pitch in their ideas, maybe they can use the hashtag Hisplaining that I'm always following. That'll be great. I will make sure to give them a hat tip or a sombrero tip
I love that.
I picked their idea. That'll be another thing we can add to the end of the column. It's like sombrero tip goes to whomever pitched the idea. So.
I love it. I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So how can people, so you're obviously here on LinkedIn, how can people follow you aside from our platforms? Where is the conversation, basically? That's, I guess,
the conversation really is in Mi Blog es tu Blog, which is on Twitter, and it's called that after my blog, which is called Mi Blog es tu Blog, and it started as an idea of calling. It was actually the first name of my blog was Mi Casa es tu Casa, and a friend of mine actually said, "No, it's not tu casa, it's un blog, so let's call it Mi Blog es tu Blog," and it just stayed there, and it's been there for almost 15 years now. I try to update it as much as possible. Like I have a recent post yesterday about the Oscars, but it's mostly the conversation is taking place in Twitter, which I have like 30,000+ followers, and I try to engage with people. I tend to not be controversial. On the contrary, I think the success of Twitter is when you really engage with community, and I try to respond to everyone. I mean, obviously not the haters, and I don't get many of those. I think I've blocked a couple of people that said silly things. Oh yeah, the other day someone called me a gringa wannabe, and then I was like, I laugh. I actually said gringa wannabe. It sounds like a nice pandemic name, but then he got a little out of control, so I just blocked him. But actually, I am actually a gringa because I have my American citizenship now.
Yep, technically.
But it was funny because he's like, "Oh, and you forgot that that you don't speak Spanish." So some people get annoyed, but that's fine. People have their problems.
I find it very hard to hate you. You're very lovable. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And for our amazing readers, thank you so much for commenting and joining us today for this Hisplaining column live stream. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what other topics you would like to see covered in the future. Laura is happy to Hisplain many of your ideas, so please don't hesitate to share them with us. Like she said, #Hisplaining, or just hit us up on here on social media. I'll be happy to bring the message forward. You can submit your suggestions also through our website. Our social media channels are always here. We look forward to hearing from you. You are the reason we're here. So by the way, Laura's new column is officially launching today. And like she said, she's talking about the güerito. So don't miss out on that. That's going to go out as soon as.
And I'm not güerita, as you can see.
No, you're not. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Ciao.